Episode 6 begins with Arondir running quite slowly through the woods. He kills a few orcs in a very weird fighting style. Like, he doesn't even look at this one. Who's he showing off for? He then does this, and why can't you just sheath your sword normally? Anyway, the orcs have a drawing of a river, and then we're in a region. Celebrimbor is struggling to make the 9 rings for men. He wants more mithril, but the dwarves haven't delivered it. And apparently he's now forgotten the name of his she-elf assistant. As he's freaking out, Sauron comes in and calms him down, saying it's fine if you can't remember a close acquaintance's name. Celebrimbor then remembers that the she-elf assistant is called Myrdania. And yes, this is the first time the she-elf assistant's name has been spoken. She's been in Season 2 since Episode 1, yet here in Episode 6 is the first time someone has audibly said Myrdania. Not only is Celebrimbor forgetting names, but he's also forgetting where he leaves his tools. Sauron tells him it's fine, and asks Celebrimbor, as he's the Lord of Eregion, if he can address his people. And Celebrimbor refuses, saying he's too focused on the ring forging, even though there's no more mithril, so he can't really do any work at the moment. But anyway, it's all worked out in Sauron's favour, as he gets to do all of the Lord's work. Sauron addresses the elves of Eregion, and the elves say the merchants and artisans who usually loiter around this gate are missing. They sent some troops to investigate, and only one returned. This commander then says,
"He appeared to be carrying a message."
What a fucking weird way to say runes were carved into his corpse. I assume these are black speech runes, and does no fucking elf in Eregion know what the black speech is? The script says this elf is a commander, and does he not know anything? Sauron then tells the elves to bury the corpse and to tell no one about the runes, and none of them think it's suspicious to hide these runes from public knowledge. Anyway, Sauron then tells Myrdania that Celebrimbor is not to be disturbed while he finishes the rings, and he holds her hand. Myrdania, a smith, is more inquisitive than any of the warriors, as she then asks Sauron what the corpse runes said, and Sauron tells her they said, "Where is he?" But she doesn't care to ask what that means or why Sauron had such a strong reaction to the runes. Sauron then sees smoke in the distance and smiles. Apparently no other elf sees this smoke or has gone to investigate. Then we cut to Adar and Galadriel having supper together. Adar goes on and on about Sauron's seduction abilities from when Morgoth was still alive. Adar then produces Morgoth's crown and says that with the magic of the crown and with the magic of the elven rings, Sauron can be properly killed, and offers Galadriel an alliance. And then he locks her up with a magnetic shackle and leaves her at the dinner table. In Númenor, Pharazôn threatens to sentence Elendil to death, but instead offers Elendil freedom if he swears allegiance to Pharazôn. Elendil refuses and is taken away. Belzegar suggests they should let the Valar decide his fate, and shows a drawing of a water monster. We then cut to Gandalf having a vision of Nori. Gandalf wants to know how to use this secret fire prophecy magic, but Tom Bombadil says Gandalf has failed every magic trial so far, and wants Gandalf to follow him somewhere. It turns out Tom Bombadil is really bad at teaching Gandalf magic. We then cut to Nori talking to the Gunt. Nori asks why the Gunt doesn't just take her people and leave, and become like Nori's tribe of nomadic cannibal murderers. But the Gunt says this is her home because she looked after a tree which her husband is buried under. Nori mentions protecting Poppy, and we cut to Poppy as she and Merry Mac deepen their blossoming love. And holy fuck, they actually kiss. I thought Nori was going to interrupt, but no, they snog. Man, their children will look horrific. Though at least they're not directly related. Poppy then convinces Nori not to turn herself over to the lepers, and we're back to Tom Bombadil and Gandalf. Tom Bombadil says,
Dark Wizard found his staff, and now the time has come for you to find yours.
Dark Wizard found his staff, and now the time has come for you to find yours. which I think cements Tom's accent as the worst in the show, which has some tough competition. as most characters are so annoying to listen to, but I think Tom's inflections make his voice the worst. Tom shows Gandalf a forest of dead trees and tells him to find his staff. Gandalf fears Nori is in danger, and Tom replies by basically saying, "Tough titties, people die." Gandalf says finding a staff could take months, and fears Nori could be dead by then. So Gandalf wants to go and save her, but Tom says that if Gandalf leaves, he can never return to learn magic, nor get a staff. Why? It's just shitty melodrama to give Gandalf an ultimatum. Gandalf ponders the landscape for a second, and then Tom Bombadil has just vanished. I hate this attempt of Tom Bombadil so much. He's not cheerful, he's not funny, he's just a lying, gloomy, melodramatic retard. In Moria, King Durin's hoard of wealth is dramatically expanding. Sauron has teleported here and wants more mithril. King Durin refuses to trade him any. Then Sauron sees a fucking mini Balrog in the flames. Sauron then smiles and leaves. King Durin reveals to his son that he actually does intend to trade mithril to the elves, but he's waiting until the elves offer an insane amount of wealth. Prince Durin wants his father to take off the ring, but the king refuses, and the power of the ring sends the prince flying backwards. Disa wants Prince Durin to start a rebellion, but the prince refuses, saying the king is still his father. Disa presses the rebellion, and it's not known whether Durin now accepts, as we cut back to Númenor. Iarian presses her father to swear fealty to Pharazôn, but Elendil still refuses. Iarian's crazy eyes activate, and she claims Elendil now hates her, and then brings in blind Miriel. Miriel commands Elendil to submit to Pharazôn, but Elendil still refuses. Back to Moria, Na'vi and some other dwarves go to dig, but Disa is here. Na'vi asks her to move, she refuses, and then... and then she starts screaming. And summons a huge crowd of bats to frighten Na'vi off. This works, and apparently this is the beginning of Prince Durin's rebellion. And then we're back to Númenor. Before Elendil is thrown into the sea, Miriel says she will go in his place. This is accepted, and Miriel is slowly walked to the shore and starts floating in this pool. The squid monster pulls Miriel under the water and then releases her. We then cut to Pharazôn touching the Palantir, and he sees a vision of Mount Doom, then Halbrand, and the music swells as though this is some crazy revelation. And we're back to Galadriel with Adar. Galadriel agrees to an alliance with Adar. Adar then reveals he has more orcs, and mockingly thanks Galadriel for sharing all of her information. But then Galadriel says Sauron has tricked Adar into bringing his army here. Adar doesn't care and has Galadriel tied up again. Galadriel rants that Adar is playing into Sauron's hand, and her words seem to convince Glug. But before Glug can act, Adar orders his army to march on Eregion. The supposed long-sighted elves don't notice the army of orcs until they're about 200 meters away from Eregion's walls, and they then sound the alarm. Celebrimbor hears the alarm and goes to investigate, but Sauron influences his mind to see a peaceful Eregion, with children playing in the streets and other happy sights. Sauron then reveals a vial of mithril, I assume he stole, and Sauron appeals to Celebrimbor's pride, saying his rings will be better than the Silmarils. This works, and Celebrimbor returns to the tower. Sauron turns off his happy vision, and as the elves are frantically running about, he watches the orcs prepare their attack. Galadriel is now cuffed to the dinner chair by one hand, which you'd think she'd easily be able to escape from, but no, she's just sitting here, captured. Then the orcs start catapulting flaming rocks over the river, and the episode ends. The pace of the show is so slow. The writing is terrible, the fight choreography is laughably bad. What major plot events happened this episode? Disa and Durin started a rebellion, and the Orcs finally attacked Eregion. This episode was just over an hour, by the way. Now, in regards to lore breaks, I could talk about Tom Bombadil. Because he just vanishes, I don't know if we'll see him again. So, in the Second Age, Tom wasn't living in a desert as a hermit. He was wandering about, meeting elves, dwarves and men, until he settled near the Shire and married Goldberry. Personality-wise, Tom Bombadil is very jolly and cheerful in the books, but in the show he's annoyingly dull and gloomy, and eventually melodramatic. I don't know why these writers turned so many happy, wholesome characters into gloomy, melodramatic idiots. The writers turned the wholesome hobbits into incestuous murderers. They turned the wise, motherly Galadriel into a brutish, melodramatic wannabe warrior. They made Elrond a scheming politician before evolving him into a useless warrior. Gil-galad has his head stuck in the sand. Celebrimbor acts like a petulant child. And Isildur is an incompetent crybaby. Anyway, only 2 episodes to go. Time flies, huh? I'll see you next week.